And Brandon, let's finish the podcast taking a look at the incumbent champions of the ACC from last year. The reigning champions in the ACC from last year, the Clemson Tigers. And the first question I want to ask you about Clemson has to do with their quarterbacks. We talked about them last year. I wasn't too high on them last year. And Mr. Kelly Bryant. It looks like a new challenger is approaching in Clemson, as now, and I'm reading it right here word for word from Athlon Sports, the arrival of stud quarterback Trevor Lawrence introduced a fascinating subplot that lasted the entire offseason and will probably stretch into the season. Brandon, I want to ask you, who should be the starter and who will be the starter for the Clemson Tigers this year? Stud quarterback Trevor Lawrence or the incumbent starter Kelly Bryant?
That was fun.
I like how they actually put in their stud quarterback Trevor Lawrence.
So I have to say Kelly Bryant should be very worried about his starting job. Mm-hmm. Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion, should be the starter and will be the starter at the beginning of the season.
Ooh, so right away.
So okay. Trevor Lawrence is not only the #1 quarterback in the 2018 class, mm-hmm. he was the best overall player in the 2018 class. Mm-hmm. That's impressive. So there he has that going right away. This is a guy, he's got great zip on his throws. And many have said that is he not only has the great zip on his throws, but that this guy is beyond mm-hmm. where your average, normal high school quarterback, guy coming out of high school, mm-hmm. should be at. So that's already encouraging. Strong accuracy. You want him to go deep, he can go deep consistently. And he can also put the right touch on the short crossing patterns. That's so important, to be able to have that touch on the deep passes just as much as going short and quick over the middle. 16.6 yards per throw in high school. 16.6 yards per throw. That's ridiculous. He never had anything lower than a 60% completion rate. He's 6'6", and he's got great instincts. He's not the runner that we've seen from Clemson, but he probably won't have to be if he has all of this.
But the one thing, I'm going to cut you off really quick because I'm watching some of his highlight here. He might not be a runner, but he is elusive in that pocket.
I was just going to say,
he will. I know high school's different than college.
It's funny because he has said that he's really not that much of a runner, but mm-hmm. if he needs to run, I can run.
Well, and the thing I love, I just picked the first video that I saw from Max Preps on it, but like the thing I'm liking so far is, first off, he's slippery in the pocket, where it's like he'll dip a shoulder to avoid getting tackled, but his eyes are always looking downfield to where it's like, I'm going to look, all right, I'm going to reset if I can, and then fire that cannon down the field.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is good. You
don't see that from Kelly Bryant.
You don't. And with Kelly Bryant, first of all, what the Tigers need to do this season is they need to stretch the field in the passing game. And if they want to do that, and if they want to do that successfully, Kelly Bryant is not going to be your guy. Kelly Bryant can pass the football, but Kelly Bryant is much more comfortable just tucking it and running it. Mm-hmm. They need a guy like Trevor Lawrence. They want a guy like Trevor Lawrence, and they have Trevor Lawrence. Frickin' put him in the lineup. Mm-hmm. Put him at the starting quarterback position, and he is going to be a stud. Now, yes, all these good things I read, that's outstanding. But are there going to be some flaws? Sure. Is he going to be probably a raw talent and you're going to be able to mold him and everything like that? Yeah, I'm sure he will be able to. But what we're getting in his raw form right now, it's going to be good. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a whole lot to work with because he's got so much talent and so much skill. This is a guy who I do believe, though, should be starting for the Clemson Tigers because he does give them, with what they're going to be trying to do, a better chance to win.
Well, and it's exactly what you were talking about with the fact of, just by watching his film, he looks the part to me.
Well, he looks like a quarterback.
Exactly.
And no offense to Kelly Bryant, this guy looks like a quarterback.
I'll be completely honest with Kelly Bryant. Like, last year, dude got a little bit lucky in my mind. Should have lost to Auburn. Like, weaseled out of that game. I know he got injured in that game and came back. They should have lost that game 14-6. That should have been a loss early on. He played, like, to quote the great Jim Mora, diddly poo in that game. Then it's like you look at the Syracuse game. Didn't play very well in that one. Didn't have a touchdown. Yeah, didn't throw an INT, but you didn't have a touchdown in that game. NC State, you just squeeze out of there with a 7-point win. Then it's like, all right, you show up in the NC title game. Well, your team did. You only had one touchdown, but at least you didn't turn over the ball. You blow out Miami. But then when we put a real team in front of you in Alabama, and Clemson fans are going to get mad at that, in that semifinal game, he didn't play well at all. 0 touchdowns, 2 INTs.
24-6
only
the
a
final
buck
score.
24.
Is that right?
What?
24-6 the final
yeah,
score?
24-6. You got a good photographic memory there, Brandon, for your Alabama Crimson Tide. But a buck 24, 50% completion percentage. Kelly Bryant's the guy where last year he was their best option.
Yeah, Kelly Bryant's the guy you put in a pinch
this year. Yeah, he will not be their best option this year. And the thing that I was trying to look for is the big board I can't find, but even for the way too early mock draft already for the NFL that came out, Todd McShay, there's 2 guys for Clemson, 2 guys that he already has the top 10 picks. And I get that it's a way too early mock draft and people are going to go, well, Ricky, those players are going to fall. Already in the way too early mock draft, Clemson has 2 guys in the top 10. Those guys being Dexter Lawrence, defensive tackle, and also Clelin Ferrell, who we've talked about before.
Oh, yeah.
We had him in big boards. We had him in mock drafts before he said he was going to come back. And then another guy that we talked about before he said he was going to come back in Christian Wilkins, D lineman from Clemson. So it's like this defense is going to be so good on one end that if you give them the right quarterback, I will say this, if Trevor Lawrence starts for Clemson, what I said in the NC State prediction will be true. Clemson will win every game this season, well, every regular season game this season. They will then win the ACC and go into the playoffs as either the number 1, number 2 team, depending on how many people are undefeated. If Kelly Bryant starts, they lose against NC State and don't make the playoff. If Kelly Bryant starts, I don't think they beat NC State this year. And the only reason in the last segment I made the prediction I did was because I'm on the bandwagon, you are. Trevor Lawrence should be the starter for this team. I know he'd be just a freshman, but you got to put in the guy that gives you the best chance to win, because when you're a Clemson team, all it takes is one game. All it takes is an NC State game. All it takes is a Texas A&M earlier in the year. All it takes is a Miami team getting ready and actually playing against you in a title game for you to be sitting back going, man, I should have just played Trevor Lawrence, man. I wouldn't be surprised if Kelly Bryant wins the job and is the starter, but I'm telling you, if he is the starter, he is getting pulled week 2 at Texas A&M, and Trevor Lawrence will be the starter from there on out.
I would be very surprised if Kelly Bryant is the starter.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was.
I would be very surprised, because not to beat down on Kelly Bryant, but we
kind of are.
Well, he kind of isn't that good.
Yeah, okay.
So I think that's what we need to say. And I don't want to say that he's a guy who can manage and kind of be the game manager for a team, but he's not going to be the guy that puts you over the hump. And not to say that Clemson was in a world of hurt last year, they were not, but they need to go with a guy, and the guy of the future it's Trevor Lawrence. And I think that if you look at Kelly Bryant and you put him in as the starter, you don't just possibly lose to NC State, you possibly lose to Texas A&M. You possibly lose to Florida State.
I wouldn't go that far.
No, I would.
I'd say
you
Boston
possibly
College.
lose to Boston College. You're looking at.
Oh, we could say Syracuse because Syracuse beat Kelly Bryant last year.
You're looking at a guy, and now we're going to have Clemson people who are Kelly Bryant fans going, just shut up. But here's the point that I think we're both trying to make, though, Ricky, is that the Kelly Bryant era has ended. It is over. Thank you, Kelly, for all of
nice transition.
Thank you for everything you've done, Kelly. Thank you very much. But we've now found sunshine. In Trevor Lawrence.
Sunshine.
And that's kind of who he reminds me of. He reminds me of Sunshine from Remember the Titans, just a little bit. Maybe not a lot, but a little bit. And I think it's the long blonde hair.
I hope he can pitch the ball better than Sunshine could.
But I just, with everything that I've seen on this guy, my question would be, Dabo, how do you not have him as your starter? How do you not have him as your starter? That would be my whole thing. When you go away from the defense, when you go away from the offense, you look at the defense. The defensive line right away, it's just unfair. It's just going to be unfair for opposing offenses.
Not
because
just that.
They have three very future could have been NFL guys already. They've got them right there on their offensive line, just licking their chops every single week.
And I looked it up. Farrell and Lawrence, not just top 10 in McShay's way too early mock draft. When it comes to Mel Kiper's way too early big board, they're both in the top 11.
Yeah.
And it's only because Farrell's at 11 in that. It could easily be both of them in the top 10 for the big board as well. So, I mean, to me, the Clemson defense is going to be what we rant and rave about all year. But it won't take long for Trevor Lawrence to become a household name. And for Clemson fans, if they haven't already, to just be clamoring his name and chanting his name from the highest of mountaintops.
And Kelly Bryant will be a very serviceable backup.
Well, it'll be one of those things where it's like, hey, we'll look 5 years down the line. Hey, remember Kelly Bryant? Yeah, he was a good transition out of Deshaun Watson. Yeah, right into the Trevor Lawrence era. That is what the Kelly Bryant era or Kelly Bryant footnote will be in the Clemson history book to me. It was a one-season transitional period. They found our guy because looking at the film from Trevor Lawrence, I'm going to say something that is going to be maybe me jumping the gun a lot, but I would not be surprised looking at what I see from Trevor Lawrence, how he develops at Clemson. By the time we get to draft time where he's on NFL radars and able to be draftable, I would not be surprised if we are not, A, talking about him as a top quarterback talent, or B, at least talking about him as a first-round talent like we were with many of the quarterbacks this year.
Well, here's, again, to go to that point, like I mentioned before, he was not just the number one quarterback in this draft class. He was the number one overall player.
Yeah.
And I guess I would see it, he would have to really just not pan out, get injured, all that kind of stuff, for him not to be a potential first-round talent in the NFL.
Well, not even that. Usually quarterbacks, I would say, that are number one, number two guys in recruiting classes, they're usually guys that are, all right, that translates to your number one, number two pick. You're supposed to be that good to where we're looking at it going, all right, you're supposed to be one of the chosen ones that we put at the top of our draft classes each and every year. I'm just going to pull up really quick just for shits and giggles. I'll just do pro-style quarterbacks because it's only given me pro-style quarterbacks to look at. I'm going to go back, let's see, 20. What's a good year you want to go back to? Let's go 2010.
2010 is what I was going to say.
That's far enough back where the number one, I'm just going to look up, the top quarterback that year was, if I scroll through, wow, there were a lot of better players on top of quarterbacks. It was Philip Sims was the best pro quarterback.
He really panned
that
out well.
year, but he was 31st overall.
Okay.
He was 31st. The guys who were the top 5 guys, and this is from 24/7 Sports. Ronald Powell, who went to Florida, was number 1. Chantrell Henderson was number 2. He was an offensive tackle. Robert Woods, who went to SC, he was number 3. Dominic Easley was number 4. Sharif Floyd, number 6. There's a first rounder. Marcus Lavenport, what would have he been if he didn't get injured? He was number 9. Keenan Allen was 10. You had Kyle Prater, LaMarcus Joyner, D. Milner.
I mean, you're seeing a lot of these guys that are still in the NFL and still thriving pretty well.
Alec Ogletree was right there at 19. Like, I'm looking down the list.
I think you have 2 guys on that list so far that you've named that are on the LA Rams currently. And the other one, Keenan Allen, he's over on the LA Chargers now. Yeah. So, I mean, and I think they're all thriving still in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's a good bet that he is going to be, at least for sure, a first-round talent that we talk about 3 years down the line.
Well, it's going to be really fun, I think, to watch him, from now until when he graduates or when he leaves and heads to the NFL, because we said that it's true. I mean, we had a great quarterback class this last season.
Mm-hmm.
But did we have a quarterback that was the number 1 quarterback and the number 1 overall in their draft class in terms of this last class?
Let's see. Sam Darnold recruiting. Let's see what 24/7 Sports had him as for his recruiting profile. Is it going to give me the option to move over? There it was. So Sam Darnold for 24/7 Sports was the 21st ranked Californian prospect. He was the 5th ranked dual threat prospect, and nationally ranked he was 148th coming in. This class, though, the one thing I will say, like I was going to type in Baker Mayfield, like he's a guy that when he was coming in, there was no way that he was going to be a top 1. Here's a good one. Josh Rosen, 3rd in the state of California when he came into college. He was the number 1 pro-style quarterback, 11th national ranked. So think of Josh Rosen, 11 national ranked, one of the top pro-style quarterbacks, and he went what, top 10? Top 10 in the draft this past year? So, I mean, there's a really good chance that not just Trevor Lawrence is going to do good things for Clemson this year, but down the year, and this will be the beginning of the Trevor Lawrence era in Clemson. Any final thoughts you want to say about Clemson this season? I know we kind of pushed it into what they could be, but you got any final thoughts as the camera dies about Clemson this season?
My final thought would be Clemson, barring any injuries to every single position and an asteroid taking out the entire team, should win the Atlantic and head back to the playoffs.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in the comment section. How good is Clemson going to be this year? Should Kelly Bryant be the starter? Should Trevor Lawrence be the starter? Let us know what you think down below in the comment section. A little bit of housekeeping here at the end. If you want to help support MVP more so than you already are by listening and watching, make sure to check out patreon.com/MostValuablePodcast. You can also buy one of our great MVP t-shirts down below in the store link. You can also catch that store at mostvaluablepodcast.com, where you can catch MVP each and every day. Last but not least, if you are listening on iTunes, you're on Apple Podcasts, or if you have an iTunes or Apple Podcast account, make sure to go give the Primetime Podcast a 5-star rating, and make sure to tell us why you love listening to the podcast each and every week. It would really help us out. Want to thank you guys for watching and listening, and as always, have a good day, everybody.